globally, female-led startups manage to secure 3% of the total VC in the world. In Europe, this amount is 1.8. So female-led startups manage to secure only 1.8 from the global VC. So we're going to see why we should invest in women. So our next panel is titled Investing in Women Founders. And for that panel, I will have with me Christian Dorfer, founding GP of Defiance Capital, Marla Shapiro, founder and CEO of HERmesa, Gabrielle Cummins, investor at Aldea Ventures, Vera Elizabeth B., general partner at 4P Capital, and Azahara Garcia Espejo, director at HERtLab Inc. And I would like a very big round of applause.
Welcome. We're very excited to be here. It's a big honor to be at this inaugural Panathēnea festival. I've been doing these talks and visiting festivals for the last 15 years in Europe, and it's the first time there's something this exciting in this part of the world. So really excited, and really excited to have these wonderful investors with me here today. Rather than me introducing you, perhaps you can say a few words about yourself. Marla, do you want to go first?
Right, hello, lovely to be here. I'm Marla Shapiro, the founder of HERmesa. We are an operator-led network of investors backing women at pre-seed and seed stage, UK and European founders. And whenever I introduce HERmesa in this type of setting, I always like to say that we are profit first, okay? So yes, we invest in women as a gender lens, but we believe this will produce additional alpha, outsized returns, and then the impact follows. So I'm happy to talk about that. I have an echo.
You do?
Does anyone else?
We have an echo.
Okay.
Hi, my name is Gabrielle Cummins. I work for Aldea Ventures, which is a fund of funds based in Barcelona. We invest in VCs with sub 100 million fund size, pan-Europe, and we have some exposure to the US. We believe in small, specialized funds that have product market fit with the fund that they're deploying. We do invest in some amazing female GPs, but similar to what Marla is saying, it's not a requirement for us. They are just the best. In terms of my background, I've been working in startups across climate, edtech, and HR, and I'm fairly new to the VC investing world.
Hi, I'm Vera Baker. I'm a partner at 4P Capital, which is a new early-stage VC fund focusing on the sustainability transformation. We invest across sectors like water and new materials and mobility and food. We are a Franco-German structure, but we also invest pan-European. We do early-stage ventures, so this is pre-seed and seed stages. And prior to investing, I was an angel investor and built a portfolio of around 30 startup companies all over Europe and the US with a generalist thesis focused on sustainability, but managed to be able to invest in 90% of diverse founding teams.
So my name is Atha, and I'm the director of HERtLab International. We are a corporate venture capital, or the investment arm of one of the largest privately owned companies based in the States, which is called Hearst. And our main thesis here is that we are exclusively investing in companies that are funded and led by women, which means that they don't only have to be the founder, but also the CEO of the company. And the reason why we're doing this is pretty much aligned with what Marla was saying. It's not because it is a fact of justice. It's because we actually think it is a winning bet, and the statistics and the numbers are out there. We are investing, as I said, in the US, but we are now also having an international set of things. We're operative here in Europe, mainly in the UK, in the Netherlands, and in Spain. And last year, we already also opened in Japan and the Middle East, which are two amazing regions with some amazing founders there as well.
Thank you. Thank you. And I'm Christian Dorfer. I am a serial founder turned VC. A few years ago, I was investing together with the founders of King.com, the makers of the app Candy Crush that you've all played, I know, statistically. And I helped set up and run the King.com Founders Fund called Sweet Capital for 7 years. Have invested in 75 seed stage companies in the US and Europe. And recently started a new fund called Defiance Capital, focus on early stage enterprise AI in Europe. We call it Defiance Capital because, if I look at my investment history, over 70% of the value of my investments today comes from companies that were founded by outlier founders or unusual founders. And statistically, if you look at female founders, they fall into that category. So Defiance Capital is looking for founders with a history of defying the odds, and some of the most impressive founders that I meet are women. In fact, 60% of my portfolio has companies founded by female founders. Not solo female founders, but mixed teams of males and female founders. And it's an interesting conversation to be having with LPs when you're a fund and with other VCs. We tend to share deals amongst each other to say, I have this really cool deal. What are the founders like? And historically it has been a lot easier for men to raise money than women. But once you start looking at the statistics, you actually find that although there are fewer female founders, which is a problem in itself, they tend to overperform the men. So a study done by First Round Capital in the US a few years ago across their whole portfolio showed that companies with a female founder outperformed the rest of their portfolio by 63%. But in Europe, we have this challenge, and it's the same in the US, that although about a third of the graduates at universities with a STEM degree are women, very few of them go into entrepreneurship. And at a time where Europe needs to find its own feet and really drive innovation, we need more women to kind of raise their hand and show ambition and start building something new. So it's a really interesting time. It's a really important time. And this is just such an obvious opportunity, and that's why we've chosen to add it to this festival as a key topic. But let's kind of dig in a little bit in each of your stories and why you're investing in women. Marla, do you want to start?
So I started the HERmesa Angel Syndicate to solve one problem, which was that women weren't writing checks. So if you look at who writes checks, who controls money, and money is power and money votes, it was all men. And I said, look, I don't care what women want to invest in, but if we're not sitting at the table, we don't even have a voice. We don't even have a vote. So I got, the leanest of lean startups. I got 5 women sitting around a table, and I'm like, you guys want to write some checks? Like, what do you think? And there's a British expression, start as you mean to go. So we were all dual nationals, so all immigrants to the UK. A quarter, I think, women of color, and 100% entrepreneurs. And those women, I myself had also been in other people's startups. I was head of commercial for 3 media tech startups in Europe, from pre-seed to Series A. And those 5 women were like, I want to put my money into women. I was like, okay, let's try it. And very quickly we found that the women founders that we were meeting were incredibly tough, incredibly gritty, and that we were able to build a trusted relationship with those women simply by virtue of the fact that we had walked that path. And so now today we're 270 members, predominantly women, predominantly immigrants, a third people of color, and our portfolio has at least 1 female founder, a third people of color, and 75% immigrants. So by mistake, I've created somebody's master's thesis, which is what happens when you give different people money. They back different founders and different solutions. And I also want to be very clear, despite all of this nice, good demographics, we are tracking in the top quintile for our early vintages against both UK and European VC funds.
Great. Gabby, why are you so excited about female founders?
So from an
female
Aldea
LPs
perspective,
or female GPs.
yeah, from an Aldea perspective, we invest in funds and emerging managers, and we have some incredible female GPs. For example, Carmen Alfonso Rico at Cocoa, Marta Zanchi at Nina Capital, Gloria Bauerlein at Puzzle Ventures, and these are women that are, I mean, they're incredible. Between them, the degrees, the PhDs, the businesses they founded, they're incredibly impressive. They have real purpose and drive. As I said earlier, we really look for people that have a point of view, and they're very technical. Carmen has a real deep tech flavor in her portfolio. Marta is building, investing in life-changing medical devices. Gloria is very technical in kind of AI and traditional industries. So we're just really excited about what they're doing and the ways in which their investments are going to have a huge impact on the world. And also what we notice is they have an awareness. So women typically will report on diversity. It's not to say necessarily that they're looking for that within their portfolio, but they have an awareness. And as a GP, I also have a managing partner at Aldea that is a woman. We're just aware of it. It doesn't mean necessarily that we take different decisions, but we ask the question and we think, are we giving this woman a harder time because she's a woman? If this was a man, would we be digging this deep and asking these questions? And I think people do have a double standard around women. And it just creates awareness, as you were saying, having more representation of women in the ecosystem and women GPs. So it's not that we're particularly looking for them, they're just brilliant.
I'd just add there that actually Gloria is one of our advisors for my fund, but I'd say that LPs actually have a massive opportunity here, I think, to create the change that we'd like to see in the ecosystem. The more that LPs are mandating some accountability and actually asking for these numbers, I think particularly in Europe, so much of the VC funding actually comes from governmental institutions, public funding, and so when they actually say, in addition to just investing in France or Germany, but you also have to make sure your investments reflect the population of those countries, 100%. We actually see the funding actually start trickling down into those founders. And I think there are certain countries that are getting this right. We have in the UK, there's a new $250 million fund. I would be remiss if I didn't talk about Germany as well. KfW also has a huge packet of $200 million going to female emerging managers. And so I think that the idea is that once you get at the top, at 2 female fund managers, it will trickle down ultimately into making sure that we have a more equitable ecosystem.
Totally agree.
So I think every time I try to explain our investment thesis, I go back to what I used to do before, which was not gender focused, and it was like basically sitting down with a lot of entrepreneurs and talk to them. And I had the feeling that out of 10 entrepreneurs I used to talk to, maybe one of them was good. When it came to women, if I sat with 10 of them, 9 of them were really, really good, which tells you something good and something bad about it. The good thing is that they are a really, really safe bet. Why? Because they are really extra committed with whatever they are building, because they had to go through so many extra challenges to go there that if they decided to be there and build that, then they are really, really committed to that. And the second thing is that they are really risk aware. So sometimes we use the sentence or the word risk averse, which has like some negative connotation on it, but I prefer to use the word risk aware. And I think the whole startup movement has gone into the risk aware version of it a little bit, like especially during the past 2 years. I like to say that we have made it a little bit more female. Before we used to talk about these crazy valuations, and not ask for EBITDA, for example, or for profitability. And now we are starting to ask for that, not just female funders, but also male funders as well. And female funders is something that they've been thinking about forever. Why? Because we are so risk aware. So it's like now we are in a situation in which it seems like female funders tend to be way more connected to the VC or the investment trend of things, which is good. But for that to really happen, we need people like them. We need investors who really connect to the way of doing things that female have. That said, I really do wish that female funders also could be a little bit more risk takers, right? Like they could be a little bit more confident and know that if you fail at something, it's not really a failure. But that's something that obviously in the US they do a little bit better than we do here in Europe as well.
I think it's very much a cultural thing. I mean, most women entrepreneurs tend to they have better CVs than most of the guys that are starting companies, but they're kind of programmed not wanting to fail. And it's really a shock to me. I looked at the statistics in Denmark recently, where I'm from, and 32% of people graduating from university with a master's in a STEM degree are women. But over a 3-year period, only less than 1% of companies that raised a seed round in Denmark had a female founder. And I just ask myself, where are they all going? You know, why are we wasting all this talent on corporate, more kind of stable positions? But one observation that I think is interesting that I've seen since I started investing in 2013 is that a lot of women or female entrepreneurs back then tend to focus on women's issues, and a lot of VCs were men, and they didn't really have an affinity with female issues. So it always stayed pretty niche. But if you look at unicorns founded by female founders in Europe over the last decade, it's in fintech, it's in health tech, it's in biotech, it's in enterprise software. And like in Finland now, I think I saw a statistic, I can't vouch whether it's correct or not, but 30% of new startups in Finland have a female founder. And Finland only has one female unicorn founder, the founder of Relics. So I think there's this, it's pretty obvious when you take like a fund cycle view of 10 years to look at the talent base and the potential. But I think shifting into more mainstream topics is going to help as well.
So Christian, I'd like to challenge that. I don't know what a woman thing is. Okay, I don't know what you're
Femtech, for example, or
in our portfolio, we have 33 companies, 2 of which are femtech. My top quintile are almost all deep tech, chemical engineering, material science, biotech. So I think there's a pipeline issue, perhaps, as opposed to, or a narrative issue. Women are building real companies, and so we don't see that at all.
Yeah, I think just adding on that, I think that it's also that it's the lens that we use to view those sectors. We view them and we undervalue them, and so then we think that fintech is a small sector when in fact it's not. And so I think that the women and the female founders are there. We are starting to see women build in other areas like AI and in climate. When you look at, in general, I'm an impact investor, and so you actually find the founders there. We don't have a diversity lens, and I think naturally when you reframe it, we know that we can actually find founders, female founders in all sectors. And so I do see them actively in food and in healthcare and in AI, but it just is changing that narrative that female founders are only in these very specific segments.
And I think it's also like a natural path. If you go to emerging markets, for example, like Japan and the Middle East, you see what you will call entrepreneurs building in like typical female sectors there. And I think it's the way to enter, right? Like at the end of the day, if you take entrepreneurs, they normally try to solve a problem that they have perceived for themselves. And that's the way that they are truly committed to that. But then once they are there and you get to have more role models building things, then you're like, oh, actually, I was working and it would be great if I had a software that could help me build these things. So I'm going to try to do this. So I think it is a natural path. And coming back to the concept of the unicorn, it's something that I've been thinking about because I think for a very long time we've been considering the concept of success completely linked to the unicorn concept as well. But I would like to see more statistics about how many female-led companies have been acquired, for example, in the past year. I have the feeling that a lot of women build things that are being perceived as very necessary and very useful for some of their larger companies, and they end up being acquired earlier than they actually get to be a unicorn. That's something that we are seeing in Japan a lot happening as well. So it's just a different way to look at things, I think.
I think we should all dig in more to the stats and bring this to bear, because I want there to be more female entrepreneurs. But how do we incentivize or inspire women to go the entrepreneurial route more? What are your thoughts?
The UK is a super developed ecosystem. You can't move for the female excel. Everyone wants to tell women how to build. They don't want to fund, but they want to tell them how to build. And we have a ton of women coming out of university. So I think the gap is in between. Why aren't women graduates then moving to that level? And I think role models matter. I think narrative matters. And I think that sometimes we do women a disservice. So I work with a program at Imperial College called We Innovate, which supports women. It's fantastic. And women are like, well, you know, I mean, I'm a computer science graduate from Imperial. I could go make 6 figures and work 9 to 5. Why should I do this entrepreneurial path? So we have to show and tell how it's possible and show role models and get people who have kind of no family responsibilities to take that risk at the beginning. So I think that's where the gap is, at least in the UK.
Yeah, I think it's one is that obviously encouraging women to get corporate careers, but also encouraging them to work at startup companies and watch and see how these companies grow and scale. And then instead of taking that experience and joining another company, they actually are thinking about creating their own companies. And I think more that we have that, more that women are kind of going through that value chain, then they start being mentors, then they start being advisors. And in addition, they also start seeing the opportunity to invest, you know, to write these first early round checks as angels into these companies. And so I think the more that we start at the earliest stages, we encourage women to go into leadership positions at companies, to go into leadership training, the more women start seeing these possibilities and they actually go out then and decide to create companies.
Asana?
I think still today, women tend to look for perfection. That's something that happens to all of us, and I don't think it's going to change in the short term. I think we should take the US concept about bringing entrepreneurship down to really early stage of lives and talking about failure and risk and building new things and different paths in your life that could also be considered a success. And at the moment, for a woman, it's easier to consider a success in life to have a big career in a very large company because that's safe money-wise, you're not taking risk, and that's kind of making you a safer bet for your own family. You could put it that way. If we could change the dynamic and the storytelling that we are telling the young kids, you know, about other ways of doing things in life that could also be considered a perfect way to do things, I think that could change a lot of things as well.
One thing I think, the other thing to add also is that we need more organizations like HERmesa, we need more organizations and angel clubs that are actually funding it so that women know that there is a soft landing for them when they start, that there is a place to go to actually get funding. And so many of this is about who are those early believers that are willing to write that first check to get them started? Who are the people that are willing to give them additional capital after they do this? And so the more we have actually fund structures that are set up, the more that it's just not one, you know, VC fund that's focused on female founders, but that all VC funds are there and actively recruiting and trying to find female founders, the more you have the chances of actually women being able to land and start someplace.
So Marla and Vera, you're both American female investors in Europe. But I was really shocked when I looked at the data recently that in 2023, of the new unicorns in Europe, only about 1% had a female founder, and in the US it was 15%. So I was like, that's just crazy. And then I dug into that 15%, and I found that a big proportion of that 15% are European women moving to the States to build their business in the States. What's going on here?
Yeah, I mean, I think, again, it's this risk aversion that we talked about before, right? And I think historically in Europe, there's much more growth capital going out of the USA than here in Europe. And so founders are naturally looking to go over there. The other issue is obviously that Europe is very fragmented. And so to grow and to scale here, you have to be able to speak multiple languages. You have to be able to understand the cultural norms in those places. And so going to the US, it's one language, it's just US. You have more role models and examples, and it makes it so much easier. Having said that, we also have this massive movement now, the EU Inc., which is trying to make it so much that it's easier to scale across Europe. And so I think, again, the more that you have this, the more it becomes easier. But we do need more growth capital in Europe. We need more people to bring money and to ensure that our founders have this landing and have the ability to grow and scale at Series A, B, and beyond.
And it's a perfect time to do that. Because, I mean, seeing how things are going now in the US, I mean, I think it's a perfect time to really bet on Europe, the funders here, the diverse teams, diversity in VCs, and even if you're talking about anything related to climate and impact, you know, there are so many female funders doing something in that area of things that we are seeing some investors in the US saying, I'm interested in investing in female funders, I'm interested in investing in sustainability. Can you bring me some of the companies that you have in Europe? But those companies are not thinking about moving to the US because they don't think that's a very friendly environment anymore. So I think it is time to really promote all these like growth capital trend that we are talking about. bringing more women into the VC industry as well, you know, in leading positions where they can make the decisions of where the money is going, because as she said, whoever has the money has the power to really change things. That's how things are at the moment. So I think we should all be aiming, I think when you aim to make women rich, that's really the way to change the world at the moment.
Let's double click on Europe a little bit, because Europe is unique compared to the US. Like 50% of the unicorns in the US were built in California. Europe is a bit different. You don't have the California of Europe, you have universities everywhere. But if you double click on Europe and look at specific regions like Greece or like Finland or like London, what are the regions that excite you the most right now?
Well, I'm from the UK, and I think the UK has got a pretty special startup ecosystem. So we're excited. We're excited about the UK. We've actually just made an investment in a pre-seed fund there. Having had experience working in startups in the UK, I'm not sure necessarily that they're ahead in terms of this conversation around diversity. But there are established female entrepreneurs. For example, Debbie Woskov, I pronounced that correctly. She's just started a fund collaborating with the government, which is directly positioned to invest in women. And as everyone has said, these kinds of things, really support the ecosystem because you have a soft landing, a place where you can go and you know that you can be heard, be seen, and hopefully receive an investment. So that's pretty exciting from that perspective.
I'm excited about France. I'm excited about Germany, the Nordics as well. I mean, we also have much more parity, I think, at startups in those places. I'm excited about Europe in general. I think part of this is just this familiarity from where we go. And so we're always looking for outlier founders. Why not Greece? Why not Athens? We just have to we have to bring more investors here to actually see those opportunities. But I think female founders are building all over Europe. It's just a question of getting our attention, building these supportive networks. Again, having the same thing is that as women grow and develop at these scale-up companies, they are now starting to be mentors. They're being advisors. They are angel investors. And they have the relationships with us to say, hey, listen, why not take a look at this founder? And so again, it's about the networking that we build here locally, the ecosystem we build. And I think conferences like this are a really great start at building that and turning other European eyes on the ecosystem happening here in Greece.
There's an incredible network called Unlock VC. I don't know, Sophie may even be here in this room, and she's helping connect women across Europe. So networks, communities like that are really powerful. Yep. She's running an event here in Greece. There's one next week in Barcelona. I know she's doing a lot for the community. So I think that's really important, especially as you were saying, overcoming the fragmentation across Europe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was just going to make one small comment about the tragedy of America. My parents are first-generation Americans, believed in the American dream. I think immigrants are not going to be welcome for quite a while in the U.S., and Europe has a huge opportunity. And I would like to see the UK government, but certainly the EU should take a role in supporting immigrant founders and building founders even outside of the EU who can no longer live in the US. Say we have a great founder who's Russian. She can't get a visa to live in the US. Exited, huge founder, right? So I think there's a real opportunity if we embrace immigration as a power to fuel Europe in the way the US has in the past.
Mm. That's great. One thing I'm excited about is agentic AI and the development of the likes of Hugging Face and Lovable, etc. It lowers the barriers of entry to build companies, and I think a lot of founders or would-be founders in this audience are from Greece. What would get you excited about investing in a female founder in Greece?
We have one in our portfolio, and she's a robotics founder. Having said that, she's based in the UK, so I think there's a little ecosystem. Actually, we have 2 Greek founders in our portfolio. So it's about the academics, I think the strong academic base, and seeing some of those PhD spin-outs, to me, is particularly exciting.
Mm-hmm. I'm actually talking to an investor later today who's thinking about becoming a solo GP, a female fund. And we will analyze that in the same way we look at any fund. What's the experience? What's the thesis? What's the network? Has she got proprietary deal flow? Can she demonstrate founders that she's previously worked with? What's going to give her the edge to win a deal? And can she secure ownership? Has she got a network of growth capital investors, perhaps in the US? So we're not going to change the bar or lower the standard of how we'd evaluate a fund. But certainly she can stand out. And I think you said earlier, investing in women is alpha in plain sight. So if she will have an edge there over supporting the Greek ecosystem of female founders and they're going to want to work with her, that's just another win.
Yeah, I mean, for us, we invest in climate and sustainability, and so I'm always looking to find those outliers in those places. Traditionally, we've invested in Germany, France, UK, and the Nordics kind of as opportunistic, and also a small pocket for the US, but why not Greece? Again, this is about how do we build these relationships. We all are here for that. We came to Greece specifically for that, to learn about this ecosystem, to actually find those outliers. And so if you're out there, I think all of us are around this week, happy to meet and to connect with you on LinkedIn and also in private one-on-one meetings.
I think one of the things that will excite me the most is the fact that that person could become one of the role models for the next ones to come. At the moment, I mean, when you get to an emerging market, even, I mean, whether it's a solo GP or whether that it's a female funder, that person has an opportunity and a responsibility to become a role model. So you have to choose really well who you are backing, but it's also a great opportunity to give her a lot of visibility so that it can inspire the next ones to come.
You should really stick around for the next session. I'm giving a plug. I'm the moderator, but I'm interviewing a good friend, Sofia Nunes. Sofia Nunes is from a small Portuguese island called Madeira. She ended up being the co-founder of Mambu, which is a fintech unicorn in Germany. And her story shows that unicorns can be built by founders even from a small island like Madeira. Greece has so much to offer. The diaspora of Greeks in London and everywhere who are super well educated and super smart, who are coming back to Greece, is just incredible. The time is really now. So I want to thank everyone on the panel, and I encourage you to reach out to them afterwards and see if we can create some magic here in Greece. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.